Okay, get ready, because today we are going to take a deep dive into the myth, the legend, the lost city of Atlantis.
Oh, I love it.
We got some really interesting source material for this one, too. Excerpts from Donnelly's Atlantis, the antediluvian world, and then from the raw material.
Wow, that's quite a combination.
It is, yeah. So Donnelly, he wrote in the late 1800s, and he lays out this whole detailed case for Atlantis as a real place.
Right, drawing on all sorts of things.
Yeah, he's got geology, mythology, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then the raw material is channeled teachings, supposedly from a sixth density extraterrestrial being.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see what connections we can find between these two very different perspectives on Atlantis.
Me too. It's going to be fascinating.
So I guess let's just start with the basics. Is Atlantis fact or fiction or something in between?
Right.
I mean, everybody has heard the stories, right? Like Plato's tale of this advanced island civilization that gets swallowed up by the sea.
Right.
And it's easy to dismiss it as just a story, but, it keeps fascinating people, thousands of years later.
It really does. And I think that's part of what Donnelly tapped into. He was writing at a time when archaeology was really kind of a young science.
Right.
But he saw these intriguing patterns across cultures, right? From ancient myths to the distribution of plants and animals.
Right. He was looking for connection.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that struck me when I was reading Donnelly was this idea of transatlantic cultural parallels.
Oh, interesting.
So he points to similarities between ancient Egyptian and Mayan pyramids, for example.
Huh.
Which, is something that a lot of people have pointed out over the years, but he really kind of dug deep into it.
Wow. And that actually connects with a key concept in the raw material, this idea of densities, which represents different levels of spiritual evolution. And the raw material suggests that beings in higher densities can influence those in lower densities. So I'm just putting this out there. Could some of these cultural parallels that Donnelly observed be a result of this kind of influence, perhaps, from beings at a higher density than humanity was at the time?
Oh, that's a really fascinating thought, because it's Donnelly's search for these connections across cultures could actually align with the idea of higher density beings influencing civilizations. It makes you wonder if those ancient myths about gods and advanced knowledge could be more than just stories.
Absolutely. It really opens up a whole new way of thinking about it.
So it's Donnelly was looking for physical evidence,
Yeah.
right? Geographical patterns, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But the raw material might be offering a totally different piece of the puzzle, like a spiritual or energetic explanation for some of the mysteries surrounding Atlantis.
Exactly. It provides a whole different framework for thinking about it. And the raw material talks about Earth going through these cycles of 75,000 years, right? And each cycle offers opportunities for souls to experience different densities and learn specific lessons.
Oh, wow. So are you suggesting that Atlantis could be tied to one of these grand cycles, like its rise and fall was part of this larger cosmic pattern?
It's a possibility to consider, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild.
And think about this. Donnelly highlights evidence suggesting Atlantis might have possessed advanced technology.
Right.
Maybe even technology that we still don't understand today.
Right.
Well, the raw material states that higher density beings can manipulate energy in ways that would seem miraculous to us. So could some of what Donnelly attributed to advanced Atlantean technology actually be explained by the influence or intervention of higher density beings?
Whoa. Okay. That's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about Atlantis.
Right.
So we've got Donnelly piecing together this picture of Atlantis from physical evidence and cultural connections. And then we have the raw material potentially offering this cosmic context.
Yeah.
Suggesting the involvement of these beings from different levels of spiritual evolution.
And that's where I think it gets really exciting, is where those two perspectives intersect, right?
Yeah.
What happens when we combine Donnelly's grounded observations with the more metaphysical perspective of the raw material?
Right.
What new insights can we uncover? That's what we're going to delve into as we continue our deep dive.
Awesome. I can't wait. All right. So last time we were really getting into the mysteries of Atlantis and trying to kind of reconcile Donnelly's historical research with the more metaphysical lens of the raw material.
Right. It's like we're trying to fit these two very different puzzle pieces together.
Exactly, yeah.
But, there are some points where they do seem to connect. One of the things that really jumped out at me when I was reading Donnelly was his focus on these cyclical catastrophes.
Oh, yeah.
He saw evidence of floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, all these cataclysmic events throughout history.
Right.
And he believed that these events played a major role in the rise and fall of civilization.
So he wasn't just arguing for the existence of Atlantis, but for this pattern of, cyclical destruction and renewal throughout history.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
civilizations get built up, they
Yeah.
reach a certain point, and then boom, something happens, and the cycle starts all over again.
And that's where I think the raw material offers a really fascinating perspective. Remember those 75,000-year cycles we talked about?
Yeah, the cycles of spiritual evolution.
Right. Well, within those grand cycles, there are also these smaller cycles of growth and decay that correspond to the rise and fall of civilizations.
So Donnelly saw these cataclysmic events as like wiping out civilizations and resetting the clock.
Uh-huh.
But the raw material suggests that they're actually part of a larger pattern of spiritual evolution.
Right. It's like these events aren't just random disasters. They're like milestones in this much larger journey.
Okay, so that makes sense. But
Yeah.
it also kind of raises the question of like, why, right, why would these cycles be necessary?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The raw material suggests that these cyclical events aren't just about destruction, they're actually opportunities for souls to learn and evolve.
Okay.
It's like each cycle presents a new set of challenges, and the choices we make during those challenges determine our individual and collective spiritual progress.
So like if Atlantis was a real civilization and they experienced one of these cyclical events, their fall might not have been a failure, but rather a turning point in their spiritual journey.
Exactly. It's a shift in perspective, right?
Yeah.
And it raises some pretty profound questions. What choices did the Atlanteans make that led to their downfall? What lessons were they meant to learn from that experience?
And maybe most importantly, like what can we learn from their story to help us navigate the challenges we face today?
Especially now, right?
Yeah, it feels like we're living in a time of, immense change, all these challenges, climate change, social and political upheaval.
Yeah.
It's easy to look around and think like, are we heading for our own Atlantean style collapse?
I understand that feeling, but it's important to remember that the raw material really emphasizes the importance of free will.
Right. We're not just puppets in some cosmic play.
Exactly. We have the power to choose our path, both individually and collectively.
So while history might repeat itself in certain ways, we're not necessarily doomed to repeat the mistakes of Atlantis.
Right. We had the opportunity to make different choices, to learn from the past, and to create a more positive future.
And that's where I think Donnelly's work, with its focus on historical patterns and cultural connections, can be so valuable.
I agree.
By understanding the past, we can gain insights into the present and make more informed choices about the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got these cyclical events shaping civilizations, free will playing a role in our choices, and the possibility of higher density beings influencing the course of history. It's a lot to process.
It is. And remember, we're looking at this through the combined lens of historical research and channeled material, right? There's room for interpretation, for questioning, for exploring different perspectives. And that's part of what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Absolutely. Speaking of different perspectives, let's get back to this idea of extraterrestrial contact.
Okay.
Donnelly kind of hints at it with his descriptions of the Atlanteans' advanced technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the raw material explicitly mentions beings from other densities visiting Earth.
Right. And it's interesting to consider how those two perspectives might overlap. What if some of what Donnelly attributed to Atlantean ingenuity was actually the result of contact with higher density beings?
Like imagine you're an ancient Egyptian and suddenly you see this, flying machine descending from the sky. You'd probably think it was a god or some kind of supernatural being.
Exactly. And who knows what kind of knowledge or technology might have been exchanged during those encounters? Could it be that some of the advancements we attribute to ancient civilizations were actually inspired or aided by beings from other densities?
It's a mind-blowing possibility.
It is.
Makes you wonder if we've been looking at history with blinders, like missing this whole other layer of influence.
It really does. And, it leads us to another crucial point of connection between Donnelly's research and the raw material. This idea that power, especially technological power, can be a double-edged sword.
Oh, yeah, right? Both Donnelly and the raw material emphasize that advanced technology without a corresponding level of spiritual development can be really dangerous.
Exactly. It's like giving a child a loaded gun, right?
Yeah.
They might not have the wisdom or the maturity to use it responsibly.
Right. And Donnelly describes how the Atlanteans, in their pursuit of knowledge and power, they eventually lost sight of their spiritual connection. They became obsessed with control, with manipulating the forces of nature.
And ultimately that led to their downfall.
It's like they got so caught up in the material world and the pursuit of progress that they forgot about the importance of compassion, of interconnectedness, of these core spiritual values.
And that's a warning we need to heed today. We're living in a time of unprecedented technological advancement, but are we keeping pace with our spiritual growth? Are we using our technology wisely, or are we letting it control us, divide us, distract us from what truly matters?
It's a sobering thought.
It is. So the question becomes, how do we avoid making the same mistakes as the Atlanteans? How do we ensure that our technological progress doesn't outpace our spiritual evolution?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and I think the raw material offers some valuable insights. It stresses the importance of seeking balance, of integrating our technological advancements with our spiritual growth.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether,
No.
but about using it consciously, ethically,
Yeah.
in alignment with our highest values.
Exactly. It's about remembering that technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. The choice is ours.
Man, this has been an intense deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground: cyclical catastrophes, free will, extraterrestrial contact, the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. It's a lot to take in.
It is, and we're not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore what lessons we can learn from Atlantis, both individually and collectively, and how we can apply those lessons to create a more positive future. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into Atlantis.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has.
We've covered a lot of ground, cyclical catastrophes,
Right.
the interplay of free will and destiny,
Right.
the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, and the dangers of unchecked technological advancement.
Right.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but I think it all points to some really profound lessons that are relevant to us today.
So we've uncovered all these potential connections between Atlantis and the raw material, but what does it all mean for us? What can we learn from Atlantis, whether it was a real civilization or a powerful myth that can help us navigate the challenges we face in the world today?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways from both Donnelly's work and the raw material is this idea that spiritual growth needs to go hand in hand with technological advancement.
Right, because we talk about how the Atlanteans achieved these incredible technological feats,
Yeah.
but ultimately they misused that power because they weren't spiritually mature enough to handle it.
Exactly. It's like they forgot about compassion, about unity, about these core values that connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Right, it's not enough to just, invent cool gadgets and make scientific breakthroughs. We need to cultivate wisdom, compassion, a sense of interconnectedness.
Otherwise, we risk becoming like the Atlanteans, powerful but disconnected, ultimately leading to our own downfall.
Okay, so we need to balance technological advancement with spiritual growth. But how do we actually do that? It's easy to talk about in theory, but how do we put it into practice in our daily lives?
Well, the raw material suggests that meditation is a powerful tool for cultivating that inner balance. It's a way to connect with our true selves, to tap into that source of wisdom and compassion that's within each of us.
It's like our daily check-in with our inner compass. Helps us realign with our values, see things more clearly, make choices that are in harmony with our spiritual growth.
And it doesn't have to be this big, elaborate ritual. Even a few minutes of quiet reflection each day can make a huge difference.
Another thing that struck me about the raw material was its emphasis on service to others.
Oh.
It suggests that as we evolve spiritually, we naturally feel a greater desire to contribute to the well-being of others.
And that's another key lesson we can learn from Atlantis. The Atlanteans, in their pursuit of power and control, they seem to have forgotten about the importance of service, of contributing to the greater good. They became so focused on their own individual needs and desires, which ultimately led to division and disharmony.
So it's not just about, our own personal spiritual growth. It's about using that growth to make a positive impact on the world around us.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have ripple effects.
Every act of kindness, every gesture of compassion, every effort to make a positive difference, it all contributes to the collective evolution of consciousness.
It's like we're all weaving a tapestry together, and each thread, no matter how small, it plays a role in the overall design.
I love that analogy.
So if we want to avoid repeating the mistakes of Atlantis, we need to cultivate both inner balance and a sense of service to others.
Absolutely.
It's about integrating our technological advancements with our spiritual growth and using our knowledge and abilities to contribute to a better world.
It's a powerful message, and it feels especially relevant, as we navigate these times of rapid change and uncertainty. The story of Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, serves as a reminder that our choices matter both individually and collectively. We have the power to create a future that is more compassionate, more aligned with the principles of spiritual evolution.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers in this grand scheme of things. We are active participants. We are co-creators of our own destiny. And by learning from the past Embracing the wisdom of traditions like the raw material and making conscious choices in the present, we can shape a future that is truly worthy of the human spirit.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end our deep dive on.
I agree. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of Atlantis and the raw material.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those connections that illuminate our understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit. Until next time.